Hi guys, so we're going to have a look at week 27 this week. So looking at where we're at as an overview, we need to be thinking about our outcomes now. We spoke about developing samples last week. That needs to be finished off really, especially over Easter, so that we can start really focusing on those outcomes and design boards after then. So this week we need to be starting outcomes ideally, or finishing off developments if not. We need to finish development and update your statement of intent, which we're going to talk about in a second. And you need to be clear on your final plan for your samples. So it's about making sure you've recorded in your sketchbook all your annotation and design up until this point, so that you can clearly see how you've gone from initial idea to development and then to outcome. After Easter, I'm going to do a video tutorial on design boards on Photoshop. So you need to have moved on to your final outcomes then, and you also need to have downloaded Photoshop, so let me know if there are any problems in Teams. So task 2, this is the last time we're going to be looking at this slide. We've been looking at it for quite a few weeks now. It had all of the sampling that we were doing on it and all the tutor reviews and peer reviews. The last task on the bottom is an updated statement of intent. We need to do this to show that we're reviewing our own work constantly and considering our creative decision making. And so I want you to do some of that at the beginning of this session. So if we scuttle along to the next slide, updated statement of intent is on the brief, so it's task number 6. I want us to do that this week. I've put a form in Moodle for you to use, and it's got a set of questions to answer. You need to complete an updated action plan, which I'm going to go through in a second. And you need to remember to include both of these in your sketchbooks, because it's part of your ongoing review, as I just said. It's about evidence of how you've reviewed your practice, how you've tried to get the best option outcome that you can. Okay? File name on Moodle is updated statement of intent. So if we just have a look now, if we scroll down to the textiles section, right at the bottom, there we go. So week 27, we've got this called second remote week. I'm going to put on here the video straight after it once I've done it, and then I'm going to put the link to YouTube on there as well. So they're all going to be in Moodle. The sheet that you're going to be filling out looks like this. Let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. So you need to answer these questions. It's up to you whether you use this form, maybe use a different coloured font to answer the questions, or if you write it by hand, or if you type it all out as a big statement, just like your initial one was. Remember, with those initial statements, I gave you feedback, didn't I, on them? You need to keep your original one, your first draft, my feedback. You then need to keep the second draft that you did based on my feedback. And then we've got this updated statement. So it feels like there's a lot, but it's about constantly showing that you've reviewed your own practice. So the questions: what initial sample did you intend to look at? So you need to go back to your original statement of intent and look at what your intentions were. Second question: what initial samples did I actually produce? So did it differ from what you'd planned? Why? What did I learn during the initial sampling stage? So this is giving a short review of each sample. So what you learnt, maybe that you couldn't do what you intended to do, maybe the techniques that you tried didn't actually fulfill your personal theme. Did it give you some new ideas? Did things go wrong but actually spark a brand new idea that you hadn't thought about? Fourth question: have some of the techniques or materials chosen changed during this process? So if you have made changes, you need to document them here. So a lot of you have had to make changes working from home. Think bigger than that as well, though. Has your idea just changed because you've found a new artist, or Kay or I told you about something that you hadn't thought about? So don't just say, yes, coronavirus meant I had to work at home. Say that by all means, but think about the bigger picture. Which one of my samples key techniques have I chosen to develop further? Why? Why have I chosen to combine some of my original initial sample ideas? So this is you saying, now I've done all this research, now I've gone through this creative process of experimentation, here's the thing that I'm going to choose to focus on for the rest of my project. And so this should really be one or two techniques in the same sample. It might be a combination of ones that you've already tried, but it needs to be really, really focused now. It can't be 6 completely different samples and you're going to develop them all. It's about choosing one and a firm, focused direction. You need to say why. If you can't justify why, you're avoiding all of those merit and distinction criteria automatically. You really need to explain why. Okay? Have I been sampling with fabric which isn't my garment? What challenges might this pose? So think about if you've been doing all of your samples on some spare denim or a piece of calico instead of your cotton shirt or your denim jacket. You need to think about how working on your actual fabric might cause any problems. So might it not dye as well as your fabric did? Might it not manipulate as well? Might it be too thick so it won't go under a machine? Might it fray when you try and tear it up into strips? So think about what impact this might have on your work. Think about maybe the positive impacts. Maybe the fabric you were using didn't do what you wanted it to do, and you're hoping with your actual fabric it will. What further development do you have planned? Do you need to extend your research? Do you need to make something more relevant to your theme? How do you need to perfect a technique? Do you need to change a technique? So this is thinking about what further development you need to do, and that's not just I need to develop my samples. It's thinking about development for your whole project. So has your theme gone on kind of a little tangent and you need to do a bit more research to give it a bit more contextual referencing? Do you need to think about a technique that you wanted to do but you just can't get to grips with it, and you need to maybe watch some more videos or ask K or I's advice on how to get this work to look the way you want it to look? Next question is, what feedback suggestions or development suggestions have you had from Kay and I? So we had one-to-ones last week where we spoke to all of you. Some of the time we told you about ideas for development. Sometimes we were talking about the bigger picture and where you needed to take your project, what direction you needed to take it in. We spoke a lot about potential changes you might have to make because of working from home. So you need to do a review here of what you've been told and how you're going to work on that feedback. A really important part of the high level criteria is being able to use feedback and put it into your work. So you need to show here how you're going to do it and then do it, not just write it here and think you've ticked a box, okay? How will I decide on which developed samples to take through to my final outcome? So that's, will you seek feedback? Will you review all of them in a table and maybe decide which one works best for your theme? Does only one really work for your theme and so it's a no-brainer? How have you decided that? And then finally, what name for your textile collection have you decided upon? So previously we've got a theme. When you present this, if you were working in industry, you'd have to present a textile collection or a collection of patterns that you'd designed, or any body of work would have to be given a name. And that's so that everybody, when they're talking about it in the industry, know that we're all referring to the same thing. And so you need to give it a name. And it might be something related to your theme, to your original garment. It's got to be something that makes sense, not just a random name like calling it Ben. It's got to have something that relates to your project. Okay? You need to discuss why you've chosen that, how you came up with that idea, why it's relevant. Otherwise, if we just say my theme is called natural forms and there's no explanation, then we're looking at those basic past criteria again that we're trying to avoid. Okay? So after that, we need to do a revised action plan, and that's on the next page. That's about you thinking about the action plans that we started with right at the very beginning. They might be a bit outdated now because we've not had any input in sessions while we've been working remotely. Kay and I have been talking to you one-to-one, but we've not been writing on your sheets and giving you feedback in the same way. So you might need to keep that one, put it in your sketchbook, put a little note on it that says, you know what, I'm going to move on to this next action plan now. It's going to be my remote action plan, and it's going to be targeted on the things I can do outside of college. Keep them all in your book, and it always shows how you've reviewed and planned your work. So this plan, I've done it in 3 columns, week by week. So we've got this week, week 27, and we've got a column for practical work that you need to do, written, annotation, review, anything that's note-based, and then visual and design. So that might be sketches, it might be design ideas. Anything that's artist research will go in the written or annotation category, not in your visual and design, unless you were really inspired by design and then working from it by doing your own sketches. Okay? We've then got 2 weeks at Easter. That means that we won't be having our online sessions, but it does mean that you'll still need to be working on this, especially if you've fallen behind. So have a look at this planner in terms of the whole brief. If it were me, I'd get your brief out, or I'd download it if you've lost it, and I would go through all of task 1 and 2, not just task 3 and 4 that we're working on at the moment, because you might have missed something from the first few weeks and we need to fill in those gaps. Easter is the ideal time to do that. We're going to be working on my task 3 and 4 for the next few weeks after Easter, and so I'll keep you on track with it. So please go back and have a look at what you've missed and plan out when you're going to be able to do that. We've then got 4 weeks when we get back, and your deadline is week 31. So when we get back, we'll have another chat about where we're at, and we'll keep having these one-to-ones, and we'll just see what's happening with Corona. We're not sure, are we? So we'll wait and find out. So if we go back to the PowerPoint now, we know that we're doing our updated statement of intent today. We then need to be thinking about task 3. So this is about us putting together final samples and thinking about how we're going to put those on a design board. We're going to do task 3 after Easter. I'm going to start having a look with you at some film tutorials, thinking about layout and professional practice, but you still need to be actually producing the samples, getting that photo cropped or edited if you need to, getting everything prepared so that we can start working on it. It might be that you produce 4 or 5 versions of your design board and we decide which ones work the best. It might be that you do loads of thumbnail sketches of potential layouts. It might be that you go on Pinterest and have a look at some examples of layouts from people at university or in industries examples. It's all about you making sure that you've presented it to show your theme and to be professional. Okay? So a reminder before we finish, I've kept all of the videos of PowerPoints that I've taught through on a YouTube playlist. So I spoke to you about this last week in our Teams, but the channel is called my name, Catherine Kennedy. Make sure you put an A in the middle or you won't find it. There's a playlist for our remote PowerPoints, and there's also the digital techniques playlist. So if you need to go back and have another look at how to do any of those digital manipulation techniques, you can always have a look on there. Okay, see you later.